Wicked!
Hello everyone, my name is Tyson, and welcome back to another edition to the Kojima's Deception series. Before I go on, I want to give credit to Cipher. You might know him on Reddit as Target Watch, but I call him Cipher as he goes by many names, and he has been a major influence on this series since after part 2. If it weren't for him helping me with this series, I don't think it would be nearly this comprehensive, so thank you, Cipher. Anyway, even though the title says that this is a side-op, and it technically is, it is still integral to the main series, and it will likely be commented on in part 3 to save time. Feel free to watch this before the rest of the series if you haven't seen the rest, but I would recommend starting with the prologue. Anyway, enough lead-in.
Get on with it.
Yes, get on with it!
Oh, I am enjoying this scene.
Get on with it!
Well, yeah. I had a special surprise prepped and
I am
everything.
happy.
But it looks to me like your hands are full.
Breathing in my style.
It's no biggie.
Just a problem.
You can always tweak the rules a bit.
Till we meet again.
Okay, listen up and don't you need to take a piss? Hold it. The show's got just 60 seconds to go. I got a message for all you folks out there in Radio Land. Sit tight and stand in here. Now's the time for action. Our society is rotten to the core. I'm talking to all the fine, upstanding folks got their welfare cut, got their jobs pulled out from under us. Yeah, you know what to do. Do it.
I know we were not real.
It's been a while, brother.
Who are you?
You know who I am.
Liquid?
Not so young anymore, eh, Snake?
I know we were not real.
What about you, Jack? What's it going to be? Loyalty to your country or loyalty to me? Your country or your old mentor? The mission or your beliefs? Your duty to your unit or your personal feelings? You don't know the truth yet. But sooner or later you'll have to choose.
What's your level?
I've got the extinction factor, but I think you got me beat.
You can see them, right?
Just a breathing
No,
in my
but I can sense them.
Wanna come work for me?
Most of you have probably figured out the symbolism in that intro trailer, but I figured, like with part 2.5, I'd explain my thought process a little bit. First and foremost, the remix of Silent Hills was done by me, but the idea was inspired by a question asked by Cipher. He had asked me if I thought that the instrument used for the sounded like the same instrument used for the intro of the chorus of the Silent Hill 2 theme song. This made me wonder if the two tracks would just fit by themselves, and while they did have a little bit of work to do, they did fit almost perfectly. I was shocked. Please note, I'm not calling this evidence. You can take it as that if you'd like, but I just like the sound of it, honestly. As far as the symbolism, I was wanting to put you in the perspective of the mirror that separates these worlds. I wanted you to see the glitches in the system that I see. Furthermore, I wanted to make more connections to Silent Hill instead of just Metal Gear, even though it was mostly just the one shot of James Sunderland looking in the mirror for the intro. Anyway, enough explanations. Moving right along, if you've been paying attention on Twitter or Reddit, you've likely seen some of these, but some of them you might have missed. I'm gonna go ahead and let this segment play out, where I show you guys some of the Twitter posts and other things that connect DS to MGS, so just sit tight.
What was it all for? If the boss has some plan, what is it?
Let's start off with what is probably the biggest news out of all of this regarding the official news from Kojima. The man in the golden mask, displayed in Kojima's latest Death Stranding trailer, is confirmed to be none other than Troy Baker, the most recent voice of Ocelot, and he seems to be reprising his role. Furthermore, something Cipher had pointed out, he's actually acting more like Ocelot in this than he did in MGSV. Furthermore, did you guys end up seeing that post that Troy did on his Instagram back in April? It was a picture of him wearing motion capture gear with a red light positioned in the center of his face. Seems a bit too suspicious to me. I'd also like to point out something that has recently bothered me. I've been semi-obsessive over Low Roar's music as they have reached me on a deeper level than most other musicians have. And I noticed something when I was listening to one of their live performances. Ryan can't keep his story straight with Kojima. You see, Kojima supposedly went to Iceland location scouting for what was supposed to be Silent Hills at the time. He said that while he was there, they ended up playing I'll Keep Coming in a local record shop, which is odd considering that I'll Keep Coming was featured on Zero, their second album. In an article online, Kojima apparently also said, "Knowing about the band's past made me think it would be fun to create a world where certain fans could physically enter the game Death Stranding before it came out." Marco Bell says, "This opened the door to questions that created the narrative you see in the video. What's the car that takes you there? Who's driving? What's the hotel room number? What does the machine and the transfer process look like? What happens if a contestant doesn't wait their turn? The genre of the music and the narrative are what excite me creatively. I feel a spark inside get ignited when a track like this comes along." Finally, Ryan has his own story for how he met Kojima, or rather how Kojima found him.
So beautiful. It's Low Roar live in the KEXP studios. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having us.
We've recorded you in Iceland, and it's so wonderful to have you here in our home studio in Seattle. Ryan, you have been living in Iceland for several years now, about 4 years?
4 years, yeah.
And you had a band for many years when you lived in the Bay Area.
I did.
When you moved to Iceland about 4 years ago, did you know that you were going to start this project, or is it something that just kind of bubbled up after you were there for a little while?
That's kind of exactly what happened. I moved, and then maybe 2 months after that, I kind of got the itch, to write something. And I was completely, I didn't know very many people that were into music or doing anything then, so it's like a fresh start. And so I just started writing this record, the first one, did it in the kitchen at my house, and then it's just grown from there.
I heard that you wrote it pretty much by yourself on a laptop, and you say it's because you hadn't met many people yet, but now 4 years later, there are a lot of wonderful people there to meet.
Yeah.
Was it difficult to meet musicians? I feel like everywhere you look, there's someone that is so talented musically in Iceland. I feel like pretty much everybody there plays music.
It wasn't difficult. And then, that's what happened with the second record. I had, made so many friends. Me and Loy had been playing together, me and Leivir, and then we got, some of our friends to come and play on the album as well. So there's a lot of great people that played on the new album as well. So, no, it wasn't. It's just such a small community. It's really easy to just get to know people, So.
I heard Amina is also the string section.
They played on the record, and then Scylla from Moom, she sang on the record, and then our friend Mike Lindsay, who actually just moved back to London, but he was living in Reykjavik for a while. He did that Cheek Mountain Thief thing. He's in a band called Tongue. But yeah, he helped produce the album,
Did you actually do this on your laptop again, or did you go into a studio?
He kind of had this makeshift studio behind this motorcycle shop, tattoo shop. It was like a little garage that he turned into a studio.
I wanted to ask you what the title of this new record is. The first album was called Low Roar.
Self-titled, yeah.
And this one a little tricky.
Yeah, so supposedly it's titled Zero, but we never called it Zero. We always had the thing in our head that we would never title an album. It's just always going to be Low Roar, the one with the deer on it, the one with the face on it, something like that. But because of iTunes and different things, they have to have some kind of thing to put it into their system so it's recognizable, like it's separate than the S/T. So they kept talking to me about it. I said, okay, well, let's just like some symbol or something. And I said, but we're not going to announce it as it being called this. It's just for iTunes or something. And the next thing I knew, like the next day, it was like, Zero out July 8th.
Well, it's kind of hard to say. The one with the deer on it.
Yeah, I know. The one with the deer, the self-titled, I know, you're right.
So my theory, especially considering Low Roar's response to that fan on Twitter, I have a feeling that it went a little something like this. Low Roar released their self-titled album, and it was a wholly original piece of art. Kojima steps into the record shop, not being truthful about what song he heard in that record shop, asks Ryan to adjust the upcoming albums to fit the themes of Metal Gear to allow him to make the connections even deeper for Death Stranding. Ryan said that he wanted the albums to be nameless, but that the only reason that they ended up titling them was for digital storefronts. They wanted the albums to be identified simply by the album art symbol. But why would you call your album Zero? The number zero, not even the word zero. I think this is both an allusion to DS and it being binary, as well as the connection to MGS with Zero, or Cipher, whichever you'd like to call him, though Cipher is less accurate with the introduction of Skullface's Cipher unit. This is just a teaser for Part 3, but I have a hypothesis that I'm going to do my best to prove. I have a strong feeling that Huey didn't actually kill Dr. Strangelove, and that he was just trying to help. Similar to all the snakes, however, Huey was used to accomplish the enemy's goal, in this case, invading Mother Base.
What should we do,
Think
boss?
about it. He's arguing his ass off, and he never changes his story, even when he's getting exiled. You feel it too, don't you? Miller has been using us, manipulating us. As you're probably aware, Venom has many hallucinations in the Phantom Pain. Considering this is in VR, what if one of those hallucinations manifested as a projection, and one of those hallucinations was a second Kaz, as well as a second Code Talker? I'll prove my point in Part 3, just keep being patient. A little more teasing for Part 3, one of the first things that set me off to think that there might be something going on with MGSV was that, according to David Hayter, Kojima apparently had been wanting to replace him for years. I found that impossible to believe because David loves the series, he loves his character, and you just don't do that when the cast, the crew, everyone is that on point. And then what does David share, unbeknownst to the majority of the world? On a side note, giving it some thought, it's of my belief that Survive is essentially Venom Snake's, aka Grey Fox, Silent Hill. Not, of course, only taking into account the literal monsters designed by Silent Hill artistic brainchild and veteran Masahiro Ito, but the fact that there's various unexplained nautical themes. At the start, your avatar is dead in a coffin and he's specifically chucked into an oceanic abyss. This would explain why we ended up seeing, whenever we pass through the fog, why the other world essentially depicts an underwater abyss, where creatures of the deep attack you, i.e., projecting the fear of the soldiers on Mother Base drowning. There's also the obvious shrapnel, devil horn deal. With that said, MGS4 is likely the same for Solid Snake. Think about it. The many allusions to prior games, the nightmarish rendition of former bosses with the Beauty and the Beast unit, the overall drab and depressing art direction. Hell, he even revisits Shadow Moses in its most dilapidated form. Before going on to this next part, discussing a potential revelation I had while watching Python and Selkin's DS's Silent Hill Part 3 video, I wanted to address the elephant in the room most of you aren't even aware of the existence of. I've made some comments in the past about Tomb Portable's videos, and I still agree with those comments about those videos as they focus on non-evidence by FIB, someone on MBGO who is known for being off the rails at this point. With that said, you should definitely watch Part 3 of Tomb's series. It is called The Ultimate Analysis of BT, and that name is not a misnomer. Tomb Portable really pulled out all the stops for this video, and I think as a form of respect, it's only right that I tell you that you should go and check it out, as it's not only really good and pertains to the upcoming Part 3, but it also pertains to a bit of information I'm going to go into shortly. What if when during the third trailer, the body decaying and descending into the ground represents the spirit of Ocelot being released? Kojima did say that the third trailer was the earliest we've seen in the game so far. They both bear the same gold skull mask. Python and Selkin even suggested that it was meant to bind evil spirits, though clearly that binding spell was broken by the chiral presence. They didn't explicitly say it. What if Death Stranding is going to show the origins of the simulation, similar to how Prometheus showed us the origin of not only man, but the xenomorphs as well? Even deeper, what if Death Stranding will be the end of Metal Gear as we know it, and the origin of for Silent Hill? Humanity had fallen to their hubris in the creation of true artificial intelligence, which caused artificial intelligence to become truly sentient, which eventually led to it becoming omnipotent.
Let me see my child once within your golden gates. Deliver me not to hell, but to purgatory.
Allow me to atone for my sins. At this point, Death Stranding is shaping up to be a prequel to Silent Hill, but at the same time a sequel to Metal Gear.
In the beginning, people had nothing. Their bodies ached, and their hearts held nothing but hatred. They fought endlessly, but death never came. They despaired, stuck in the eternal quagmire. A man offered a serpent to the sun and prayed for salvation. A woman offered a reed to the sun and asked for joy. Feeling pity for the sadness that had overrun the earth, God was born from those two people. God made time and divided it into day and night. God outlined the road to salvation and gave people joy. And God took endless time away from the people. God created beings to lead people in obedience to her. The red god, Juchilbara, the yellow god, Labselvith, many gods and angels. Finally, God set out to create paradise, where people would be happy just by being there. But there, God's strength ran out, and she collapsed. All the world's people grieved this unfortunate event, yet God breathed her life hasn't been lost. We must offer our prayers and not forget our faith. We wait in hope for the day when the path to paradise will be opened.
Leah's name is unknown in DS currently, but seemingly she was Lisa in Silent Hills. The name Lisa is a Hebrew baby name. In Hebrew, the meaning of the name Lisa is Elizabeth or Elisabah, meaning either oath of God or God is satisfaction. With all this in mind, it's looking like Lindsay Wagner will be the boss, Leah Seydoux will be Eva, and Norman Reedus will be Big Boss. But in terms of Silent Hill, Jack is likely going to be tempted by Eva to commit the first sin, at which point he will beg for forgiveness and to be placed in purgatory to atone for his mistakes which can't be turned around.
I have to apologize. I wasn't sent by Khrushchev. I'm not a KGB spy, and I never worked for the NSA. I'm an agent of the People's Republic of China for the General HQ 2nd Department of the People's Liberation Army. It was all mine.
Mads, from the angle of there being multiple interpretations and that more than one person is seeing themselves as someone else, I'm reckoning that Mads' character in one perceived mentalized reality is the Sorrow. But in another reality, I'm thinking he may be a past ancestor of Silent Hill 2's James Sunderland. The reason I think this is because Masahiro Ito showed off Pyramid Head months after the second trailer. What's interesting is it was the first time he'd ever talked about Pyramid Head and what it was based off of, which he pointed out was a German World War II tank. Now in trailer 2, we happen to see a tank with what appears to be some kind of organic mass coming out of it. What's interesting is people discovered a very similar kind of organic mass inside of Pyramid Head. Cipher has this idea in mind where there's shared distortions of Silent Hill protagonists. So for instance, if Pyramid Head was based off of a World War II tank, then it's probable that James's grandfather fought in World War II. This is because we know the Sunderland family tree has served in military affairs. How will the gods of Silent Hill come about? We know Sam collects those weird metal-like tags containing different equations of the universe. Maybe it's a similar situation like Doom, where a portal is open to hell or something. Or at the very least, Sam gets in contact with very powerful beings within the universe and is then granted his powers. Sometime after the events of MGS4, people found a way to travel back in time. Doing so, that very technology ended up spreading throughout time. Technology that was made in the future would end up in the hands of those in the past, until eventually, you have essentially this vicious cycle. Let's say various different warring factions were to get their hands on such technology. At this point, war would essentially become a continuous process. I think this goes hand in hand with the anti-pollution theme the trailer gives. A continuous paradox that never ends, that tears apart the very fabric of reality. I reckon bridges could have been born out of these series of paradoxes. The V trilogy has served its purpose. It was made to merge the elements of Metal Gear Solid with the Silent Hill series. Death Stranding will be the final result. Just think Silent Hill's Otherworld via mentalized projected reality, virtual simulations, DNA, and the subconscious. Simplest way to put it is Silent Hill with VR. Silent Hill's idea of the supernatural interfering with the subconscious. Metal Gear Solid's idea of a virtualized meta-reality. These are all things that Death Stranding, PT, and the MGS-V trilogy have in common with each other. It's why Death Stranding specifically shows in Trailer 5 a golden masked figure pulling nightmares from DNA strands. Rocks behind him formed helix structures. Reason that MGS-V Ground Zeroes had that weird Fox engine crash, and why PT's menu had a brain scan on the left side, and why ultimately, the mysterious playable teaser also crashed, gave out error messages as if it were a VR program running off of digital space.
fears a monster. The world is full of them. Loneliness. Doubt. They hold us back. But in our world, when they bring darkness,
You bring darkness, we bring light.
This is a pretty classic Silent Hill tunnel reference.
If you corner us, we evolve.
we evolve.
We will evolve.
If they isolate us,
If you isolate us, we will break free.
and if they try to end us, we just keep coming back.
And then they run into the fog with headstrong determination, basically conquering the fears of Silent Hill by rushing through its signature thick fog.
In our world, we never fear monsters. Here we are fearless. Here we play.
A space where digitized realities, or alternative realities, can be played in by Ludens, those who play, i.e. gamers within their digital space, in this case, a game world. Kojima is embarking on creating the most meta-realized project in the history of entertainment, and he's using Silent Hill combined with Metal Gear Solid in order to realize such a vision. A vision where the reality of the gamer and the software become one with each other. Essentially, what this small advert is trying to say is that when people enter a video game or digital space, the harsh realities of the world us Ludens live with cease to be or are temporarily postponed. That the trivialities of the real world, such as our job, our health, our family, our goals, our dreams in life, or whatever it is that we may fear losing, ceases to matter when we enter inside this virtualized reality. Thus, in their world, the world of video games and or digitized reality, when they bring darkness, we Ludens will bring light as whatever playable avatar we ultimately would take control of in a video game. Lastly, the whole "and if they try and end us, we'll just keep coming back" line is pretty much referring to the video game characters just respawning after death, as well as being a blatant reference to "I'll Keep Coming" by Low Roar, which Kojima essentially uses as his theme song for Kojima Productions. In a way, it's kind of cliche, the whole "in reality humans are monsters" thing. We've done much to poison our world via generations, which would also explain, for example, why Stranding seems to have very strong anti-pollution themes as a chiral mirror to what humans are doing in reality, in regards to our own creeping pollution problem. Hence several trailers of Dead Sea Life. As well as why in Metal Gear Solid, the original character, Raven, has that line where he says,
We'll play with him a little longer.
You would be wise not to underestimate him.
What did you think of him?
He is just as you said. In battle, he is as if possessed by a demon. Much like you, I would expect no less.
See? I told you so.
i.e. Fourth Wall Break perceiving the Luden as said demon. We're the wire to the character via our game controller. Much like how things throughout Death Stranding's trailer are wired, we plug into a world and take control of it. Basically, the inverse is that digitized characters view us as the monsters because we are the ones who invaded via our black controller cords. So for this next part, you'll need to know about a theory posted on NBGO about Kaz's Burgers. I know it's goofy as hell, but I'm being serious about this. This theory is proposed by Joe Drinks Beer on NBGO a couple years back. I reached out to him and got a response fairly quickly saying that it was alright. You can find a link to the original Reddit thread in the description. The following will be verbatim from that thread until I go on to talking about the Periscope stream with David Hayter and Robin Atkin Downs. It is my belief that in these tapes, Miller is playing the role of Kojima. The hamburgers represent his product, the Metal Gear games, and Code Talker is none other than us, the consumer, but also could stand in as Konami itself. In Tape 1, Code Talker's eating habits, Code Talker explains that he does not need nourishment from eating, but he longs for an Americanized taste. This stands as a representation of video games themselves. Consumers do not need this form of entertainment, but it is so enjoyable that they prefer it from time to time. Code Talker then explains that there are fundamental ingredients that make up a classic hamburger, such as lettuce, beef, and buns. This is a representation of what the original Metal Gear was, a game that was constructed on the backdrop of a military shooter with elements of espionage, a theme that was very prevalent in games of the late 1980s.
Hamburgers. Hamburgers? Even we didn't have become Americanized.
Your people suffered so much at the hands of America, and you asked for hamburgers.
We have suffered more than you can know, but I do not see hamburgers as an accomplice.
This could be Kojima's response to the positive reception of the original Metal Gear by Japanese audiences. Code Talker dismisses this by saying that America cannot help that a burger is simply delicious, and that a good formula makes a good product. This is essentially boiling down to a statement on video games themselves, stating that a good game cannot help but be enjoyable. Code Talker goes on to finish this tape by stating,
"Be warned though, I have very high standards."
To which Miller or Kojima responds with,
"Don't worry, I do too."
Ultimately, this sets the stage for the type of care that Kojima pours into the creation of his games. In the next tape, Kazuhira Miller's research, it starts with Code Talker not being fully satisfied with the product and demanding another one.
Hey, that was 100% all beef patty, and no shortening in the bun either.
Nature's blessings, unadulterated, in hamburger form. Is that it? But when taste falls short, so does our gratitude to nature.
Miller then admits that he did settle for second best. At this point, Miller states that he has created a brand new burger. I believe this is a burger in reference to MGS1. Code Talker admits that this is a good burger, but he's still not quite satisfied.
Damn it. I was sure the Kobe beef, but maybe we didn't have enough. If we had any more, we're cutting into our profits.
Profits?
We'll be taking a loss on every unit.
What are you talking about?
Huh? Anyway, I'll be back with another round of product.
I believe this exchange is how Kojima reflected his thinking into the world of the game development itself. MGS1 being a large budget game, the success and sales were absolutely necessary. Code Talker is still playing the naive consumer that does not consider cost or profit in game design, and only begs for more and more. The real nail in the coffin comes in Tape 3, Kazuhira Miller's epiphany.
You have a new hamburger?
You guessed it, and this time we used lamb.
Lamb?
You're not a lamb kind of guy?
A hamburger is made of beef. Who ever heard of a hamburger without beef?
Yeah, but we gotta stay fresh, stand out from our competition.
You're what?
This recounts MGS2 and the decision to use Raiden as a protagonist, and removing Solid Snake from the player's control. Code Talker's concern essentially states that, what is a Metal Gear game without Solid Snake? And also Miller stating that he is trying to separate himself from competition is a way of Kojima trying to outdo other developers. Code Talker then states that the burger is okay, but you can call it a burger or the game is good, but the fans have difficulty in accepting it as an MGS game, to which Miller responds that maybe because it looks like a regular burger, but it's not. Miller then tries to come up with an extreme way to get people to eat his burgers. He goes on to address the issues of insane budgets not quite adding up, to which Miller states that he already has his own place, or Kojima in his own studio. To which Miller reassures Code Talker that everything is square, and he is not trying to wrongly use the resources of Diamond Dogs.
What is it you are planning? Are you using me? A taste tester. It takes more than premium ingredients and a clever recipe to satisfy the palate.
Okay, so what do we do?
The palate seeks one thing: chemical additives.
Chemical additives.
The tongue simply identifies specific amino acids, which the brain then recognizes as appealing.
This is a reference to the character of Solid Snake, stating that purposefully using this additive ensures a great product.
Therefore, all that is needed is to chemically isolate those amino acids and incorporate them into your products. To be clear, I speak of flavor. The rest is irrelevant.
That seems a little extreme.
Do not forget, in seeking coexistence with nature's blessings, not everything can remain in its natural form.
This is ultimately the preface of MGS3, meaning that the character model and the voice of Snake are so integral to a good product. Code Talker goes on to explain that the land we draw our resources from will change, and our impressions on that land will have impact. Code Talker also explains how tapeworms enter an unfamiliar body and search for their natural habitat. This explains that Kojima could create a seemingly entire new timeline of games and start harvesting a fresh plot of land, while adding these familiar additives of Snake that the fans are already familiarized with.
It is also sometimes necessary to eliminate certain parasites, or selectively use or even modify others. Alternatively, we could say that if a man is part of nature, the work he does is also part of it. What is important is the balance.
Yeah, you're right.
To me, this is the rationalization that Kojima could use as previous elements of characters to fully flesh out their motives. MGS3 for the first time gave a much deeper insight into the characters of Big Boss and Ocelot. In MGS3 we saw ourselves sympathizing with these characters, where in the previous installments, they played the primary role of villains. Of course, Code Talker's statement is that they could not be inherently evil. There must be a natural way of progression for these characters, and that is the story that is worth telling in MGS3. Satisfied with this, Miller happily states that with this, he will create the Frankenburger, so overly packed with additives that it will be perfect. Code Talker ends this tape by warning Miller that the balance of additives are of the utmost importance. In the final tape, tape 4, The Ultimate Hamburger, Miller is sure that he has created the greatest burger the world has ever known. At first, Code Talker is put off by the way it looks and claims that he is no longer hungry, but Miller persists and assures him to just try it. Upon trying Miller's latest product, Code Talker exclaims that
it's perfect, right? Right? This takes me back.
This final burger is MGS4. It is so over the top in character development and cinematic presentation, seemingly closing every plot line that had ever started in the beginning of the series. The basis for this comes from the fact that the Frankenburger doesn't exactly look appealing, but is specifically tailored to the taste of Code Talker. This is a statement that MGS4, as a standalone game, is not very accessible toward game players, but that was specifically made for fans of MGS. Doubly speaking, Code Talker only reacts positively because it contains all the specific chemicals that he remembers from his childhood. This is what separates the conclusion, whether or not Frankenburger is MGS4 or MGS5. Miller goes on to proclaim that this burger could even stop people fighting over food and finding a reason to hate one another. I think this is a nice little jab at the MGS theorists that have crafted intricate endings that that they had thought up themselves. Miller goes on to speculate that this burger will help liberate people around the world. He also states that fighting the notion of American imperialism head-on has only created more conflict. to which Code Talker seems doubtful that a burger could have that much impact. Perhaps this is yet another sign that nuclear abolishment is impossible. Alright, so with all that said, last but certainly not least, the big Snake and Kaz meetup debacle. So if you watched it through, they were pretty much constantly saying that nothing was going on and that they were sorry for leading us on. But throughout pretty much the entirety of the stream, they just kept saying shit that they know will keep leading us on. Here's where I wanted to tie in the burger conversation into this meetup, as not only did they meet up to do a Q&A, but specifically to eat burgers.
Cheeseburgers, yeah, cheeseburgers.
And I was not familiar with the cheeseburger conversations. I think that's in Metal Gear 5. But there was really a strong support for artificial ingredients, which seemed very Metal Gear.
How are the burgers? How's your burger?
It's so tasty. I got an Impossible burger. This is a vegetarian burger. Not that I'm necessarily a vegetarian, but I had an actual burger yesterday and I didn't want to overburger myself. And it's so good.
With the burger analysis in mind, I think David's referring to the Ruse, particularly V right now. It's a simulation of a regular burger using a meat substitute. It's still really good, but it's completely different. Venom becoming a body double after brainwashing, the Phantom cigar, even the actors not being the same.
Dad was such a drag. Every day he'd eat the same kind of food, dress the same, sit in front of the same kind of games. Yeah, he was just that kind of guy. But then one day he goes and kills us all. He couldn't even be original about the way he did it. I'm not complaining. I was dying of boredom anyway. But guess what? I will be coming back, and I'm bringing my new toys with me.
That was a decently important part, but there's more.
I would love to work on something, anything with you again. That was fun.
It was fun.
You never know down the line. Unfortunately, just, if you want to make it clear, there is nothing right now in the works. We just want to make that clear.
Well,
I mean, lead anybody on, but
hopefully there will be things to announce, but
I think it's important.
Robin interrupts after glancing at the camera in concern, almost as if he thinks David is about to let it slip, right before David gives Robin shit for not being as experienced with the Metal Gear community's theorizing, putting out statements like, I have a serious mission for you.
To me, it says, all of the people that have been tweeting, it's exciting to me that people are truly interested in something else, and obviously, yeah, I'd be down for working on something else.
Absolutely. I think Robin was just sort of, I don't know how much experience you have tweeting to the Metal Gear community, but I have quite a bit. And when he sent me that first message, I was like, oh no, things are going to explode. So I do apologize for any misconception about new games and whatnot. I would love to do it. We'll see if Konami is able to make that happen, because they own the property.
Some people on NBGO were attempting to see what the numbers on David's arm were, but even the source file on Periscope is too low quality to make anything out. It's impossible to ascertain the actual numbers from what I can tell. What I can say is that it's two groupings of numbers, 3 digits and 2 digits. I'm curious if that 204863 instance in MGSV looked the same. According to a fan, Robin played a soldier called Johnny, not the farting one, in Portable Ops. I think this is inconclusive, however, considering the generic role in MGS3 titled Soldier. I believe that was the introduction of the simulation to the audience. Hence that being about the time of the inception of the simulation theory in MGS, as far as I know. A little after 18 minutes in, David is asked,
David, what did you mean by everything is a lie on Twitter?
Well, I think I just tweeted that randomly because I was tired of being lied to. But I think that this event probably illustrates my point better than anything I could ever describe.
Just wanted to do the word.
Something about this whole event that's really throwing me off is that A, David is mispronouncing Kaz as a basic American would.
Kaz.
But we know that he knows how to pronounce it because he had to do it. He had to voice 2 games where he had to constantly say it. How could he forget that? Especially since it was only about, 6 years ago when he did Peace Walker? 7 years ago? And then David talks about a show he's making for Netflix called Warrior Nun. I feel like the choice of phrasing "we're not yet" is important considering the importance of "not yet, Snake, it's not over yet," as well as his certainty that they would do it. Conversely, shortly afterward, he was asked if he would play Snake if he was asked to play him in an MGS movie, to which he said, "I would, but I don't think that they would." 30 minutes in, the house phone rings and Robin jokes that Cipher is calling, saying that it's for the Diamond Dogs.
We talk about it all the time.
Hold on, it's Cipher.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can't. He has to get this because Kiefer's on a 24-hour time limit.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Well,
now he's gone.
It's actually it's for the Diamond Dogs.
Okay.
So with all of this said, what do I think about the meetup? I think it was fun, but more than that, I think it was a distraction. I think it was meant to make people have false hopes, have those hopes let down, then use that disappointment as a way to boost sales on DS whenever we end up finding out the truth. I really do think that it's possible that Death Stranding will end up being the end of MGS and the origin of Silent Hill. It would be a proper send-off to 30 years of one hell of a legacy, and the beginning of a new legacy, or rather the true beginning of a legacy which had been tarnished when the development was brought overseas to the United States for the later games in the Silent Hill series. Speaking of, as usual, credits to everyone who has shown these theories on NBGO on Reddit, as well as Python and Selkin. Before I go, what the fuck is this?
Snake, do you know what today is?
Yeah. It's Sunday, cuz. Our one day off from manipulating international conflicts and secretly guiding the geo-military course of the world.
It's not just any Sunday.
What is it, laundry day? My bandana's filthy.
It's October 21st, 2018. It's been exactly 20 years to the day since the Shadow Moses incident.
20 years. Hard to believe. Lot of adventures since then.
One hell of a lot of cheeseburgers.
You're a strange cat, cuz.
The key is, artificial ingredient.
Not sure where you're going with this.
I'm just saying, the world has been listening to us for a long time now. I think we owe them our thanks.
What? Like a tribute video or something?
Yeah. Something to show our love. To let the world know that the members of Militaire Sans Frontières haven't forgotten them.
It's a fine idea.
Thank you all for watching. I know that you've been waiting a long time for not only this video, but also part 3. Part 3 is on its way. I'm finishing the script as we speak. It's just a matter of time at this point. Anyway guys, if you liked the video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up, click subscribe if you'd like to see my future content. Comment down below to let me know what your thoughts and suggestions are, and maybe consider donating to the channel. Even $1 will gain you access to behind the scenes content, scrapped projects, and much more. Also, I have a second channel I have yet to really dig into and even really tell you guys about, but hey, that's there! RHS Games, look it up, or look in the description for a link, or click the card, it's probably going to be there too. Anyway guys, until next time, this is Retro Hellspawn, signing off.